Hey everybody, welcome. We're actually live now. Ryan and I have been sitting here getting our chairs ready, getting the whole studio ready. Actually, Ryan did all the heavy lifting here.
Oh, you helped. You helped
Yeah.
a lot.
Thanks for joining us today. This is great. We're going to talk all about the Pearl systems today, and we have a lot of people here in chat already. I can see people from different universities, from different churches. I see Stacy from New York, and Kevin and Avon, and Dallas. We've got the Sheriff's Department. That's Windsor from the OC Sheriff's Department. I like that one. We've got Carol from Vives University of Applied Sciences in Belgium. So I'm keeping an eye on the chat in Crowdcast today. And what we hope for today is that this is a really interactive webinar. Ryan, what are we going to do today?
Well, we're going to go through the Pearl devices, and we're going to talk about the use cases that they work in, and just how you might use them and how you can use the features we have built into them, like our REST API, and just the ease of use it brings into it, removing the complexity of the technology from the end user.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Ryan talks to customers all day, every day when he's not here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So your job is to try to stump Ryan and ask him about things he hasn't heard of today. So if you have weird use cases, if you want to try to understand if Pearl works in your environment, this is a great chance to have that conversation. We can go deep and we can go wide on all these topics. But
Yep.
We'll start off and we'll give a little presentation about who we are as Epiphan, and we'll talk over each Pearl device and show you some of those stories. So I just want to make sure I'm staying on top of the chat here. Put your questions in here. We'll interrupt ourselves and make sure we get to those questions. There's also a Q&A function within Crowdcast as well. So if you put your question in that little Q&A spot, it'll make sure to get to the top of the list. And we have a moderator who's keeping an eye on all this chat for us today. So let me get started and show a little bit and do a little less talking. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about Pearl today. And if you don't know about who we are as a company, we often say broadcast without barriers. And what we mean by this is the idea of making video easier for everybody. In fact, we started out making video easier for people in really remote places. So this is us. This is not us. This is astronauts aboard the International Space Station.
We look quite different now.
Yes, that's right. This is Ryan and I on the International Space Station. And here's Ryan and I in an underwater ROV. So these applications, people are using our gear to capture video where that really matters most. And since these days when we were doing really mission critical stuff, we've been doing stuff all over the world. So here's a map of all of our Pearl devices located around the world. And you can see we're pretty much everywhere. But we'll get into that today. And Ryan, why don't you take us through the Pearl systems and get us started?
Yeah. So let's go to the next slide here. And really, we always start off with what the Pearl philosophy is. And the Pearl philosophy is to build a versatile, reliable, easy to use, and professional quality device. And that's what we've done with these Pearl devices: Pearl Nano, Pearl Mini, newest Pearl Nexus, and then the Pearl 2. And we don't lock anything in. We have an open ecosystem. So if you want to curate the user experience, using your Crestron, Extron, QSys, or AMX, Stream Deck, we're using a Stream Deck actually today to do all of our layout switching and even controlling our PowerPoint slide deck. We're doing it all via a third-party control. And you could do all that for Pearl devices too. And we're compatible with NDI, SRT, and especially with education, Kaltura, Panopto, Yuja, OpenCast, direct integrations with CMS platforms.
Yeah. So I bet we're going to get some questions like that today because everybody's got their own stack that they're working with. In fact, we already have one now, so we might as well jump into it. This is from James asking if we had any issues with VLC player glitching streams, like videos freezing. Have you heard a lot of beef around VLC?
VLC is an interesting program because it does a whole bunch. It's open source.
Yes.
And usually if you're seeing glitching and stuff, because it's usually over the local network, I would imagine it's either a local networking issue or it could even be processing on the computer itself. It's really hard to say. There's a whole bunch of things that can contribute to that. But the best thing you would check is if you're running these issues.
And it's not an interoperability issue. We just send out the stream and VLC parses it how they like.
Yeah, so. VLC can look at different stream protocols, but check the recordings of the Pearl device at the same time. And if the glitching's not in the recording, it's not in the encoding pipeline.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so the devices. We've got a lot of different flavors of Pearl. Maybe you can give the quick rundown.
Yes. So there's 4 Pearls, and they all kind of scale up and down depending on the use case that they're supposed to integrate with. And there's really 2 main things we need to know about Pearl devices when we're talking about them. That is, what is a channel and what is a layout? So a channel is your encoding instance, essentially. So where you're recording, you're streaming, where you build your layout, you put your metadata in, things like that. And the devices scale from a single channel, a single layout device like the Pearl Nano, up to the Pearl 2, which is in a 6-channel.
So for like example, in today's broadcast, this is one channel that you're watching.
Yes.
And we're switching between different cameras within that,
Yep.
but it's one channel.
Yep.
We actually have another channel for a backup stream that we're sending somewhere else just in case things go sideways on us with Crowdcast, which has been known to happen.
Yep.
But so we're using 2 channels today.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're using 2 channels. And then the next thing we really want to talk about is, what is a layout? And a layout is kind of like the slides in a slide deck. And we have a couple examples of layouts that you might see on a Pearl device. And we leave it up to a user to build this how they want. There's no boxes we put you in. If you want to build something like this 3-up, put in graphics, put in text, we give you the power to do all that. And we don't limit you in any way.
Yeah, layouts are fun.
Yep. For sure.
Okay, so from here, why don't we introduce the very first Pearl system you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we have the Pearl Nano. So again, Pearl Nano is a single channel, single layout device. HEVC and 4K possible here, which is really quite great. And so you can put this into like corporate events, or maybe you send this out with a kit, streaming SRT back to some production hub or something like that. Or put it on the end of an already existing infrastructure where you're switching upstream. This is a really good streamer recorder add-on, for sure.
Yeah.
And so typical what you'd see, if you want to go to the next slide there and bring that up.
Yeah.
Well, you might see a couple SDI or HDMI sources coming in. There's a pass-through in the back, so you can put that out to like say projector in a room, put that onto a screen. And also you can adjust SRT and RTSP into the Pearl Nano 2. So quick look at the back there. PoE plus as well, so you don't need to actually connect DC to this. You can run it right off a PoE enabled switch.
Yeah. This might be the most versatile of all the Pearl systems. It's the smallest. It has only one encoding channel, but you can kind of do anything you want with this device, which is I've got a bit of a soft spot for
within that one channel, for sure.
Yeah, you can do a lot.
Yep.
I do see some chatter and some comments in here. Somebody's asking this from Clifford. Are there any Epiphan products that will do WHIP? W-H-I-P. Yeah.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, right now we don't support WHIP, but it's another thing we're looking at. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm just checking the chat here while we're going. I see someone named George Herbert here asking questions about older equipment like the VGA printer. Thanks, George. I see, what are the 2 Nexus units called?
Oh, you mean like
what
two
do you
together?
call 2 Nexus
I call
units?
it Nexi.
Nexi, that's right. So this is the Pearl Nexus. We'll get to that. We'll do a whole thing. You're right on the mark. That's from Scott. Thanks, Scott. And then Robin is recommending the QLab 5 free version.
I have no idea.
I don't know what that is either. Maybe that's in context to the VLC comment, but Robin, I'd like to know more. Is there a streaming problem in the Pearl that makes you have to auto-refresh the web page in order to keep the stream live?
No.
No.
If you're seeing something like that, reach out to support@epiphan.com, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, that was an issue with VGA and HD encoders, so hopefully something we've resolved with the Pearl systems. Okay, why don't I jump back into this deck here and move us along.
Let's talk about Heffel.
Heffel.
Yes.
This is one of our... Before I get into that, like maybe you could just set it up. Who's Heffel and what are they all about?
So Heffel does these live auctions, and essentially they're across Canada, and they needed a solution.
They're across Canada, but they're selling international. They're selling Warhols. They're selling Riopels, like these really well-known works of art. Like they're a big deal.
Yeah. Well, they came to us looking for a solution to how do you get their their remote auction sites and stream from there into a main place and then mix all that together. And so they're using Pearl Nanos to remotely streaming SRT to other Pearl devices and then mixing the whole production together.
Yeah. So in this map we see Vancouver, Toronto. One of these is the HQ where they're doing the actual production, and 2 of them are remote sites where they're bringing it all in together.
Yep.
And then it goes up on YouTube. I think we have some pictures of it here.
Yeah.
Here's behind the scenes, and you can see on the right that black stack is 4
nanos.
4 nanos, all used as decoders to bring in those SRT signals.
Yeah. The whole purpose is just to be able to present what each site is actually auctioning off at one time, rather than doing it in separate streams or anything like that. So Nano is a solution there.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yep.
I just teased up too that we do have a shelf.
We do.
For for Nano as well.
So you basically just pop the Nanos in, take a couple screws out of the back, pop it in, put the screws back in, and then you have a rack-mounted Nano.
Yeah. So it's also your most cost-effective solution out of all of our streaming and recording products. Pearl Nano is going to get you off the ground running if you're just getting started. You can see there's a comment here about Stream Decks. And I mention that because when you see me looking to the left, I'm actually playing with our Stream Deck here.
You can just see it on the edge of the video frame there.
Yeah, you can see me here. This is our Stream Deck, and I'm changing layouts. So I'm flipping over to the PowerPoint and back, and I can do a close-up shot, and I can do different things all with the Stream Deck. I can advance our PowerPoint as well. So I don't need to tout the virtues of Stream Deck. I think everybody knows it. But we have a comment from Brent here. Stream Decks are great with Epiphan, but is control via USB Direct Connect from a Stream Deck available?
Yeah, no, right now you need to be connecting to a computer. It'd be very interesting if we had something inside Pearl Mini that you could run, like BitFocus Companion or something like that.
Yeah,
but as far as I know, we don't.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
We often see customers who move to a Scarhoy in that situation. We probably have one kicking around the office
It's
too.
literally on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, and a Scarhoy is like a Stream Deck for pros, in that it doesn't require a computer. You can do a lot of similar things. So.
Yep.
Okay. Where were we, Ryan? I'm supposed to be in charge here.
And then one more slide over.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Pearl Mini.
The Pearl Mini. So Pearl Mini. So this is, you're going to be your 3-channel and multiple layout device. So going back to what we said earlier about multiple channels on Pearl device, so that means you could be recording 3 isolated audio and video sources inside 3 different channels, and integrate with Kaltura, Panopto, and then upload all those simultaneously, which is really a powerful part of this. And this is more used for those volunteers, or you putting this on a lectern or something like that, where you want control on the Pearl device, maybe not controlled by something external, like a Extron system or a Crestron system or something like that.
Yeah. Hugely popular for those environments like
EDU and things
well,
like that.
studio spaces, even like
Podcasts.
this. We have our podcast friend Jeremy who puts them in place where people can walk in and push that one button and just get started that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we have some stories here in this deck which will convey some of that. So this is, maybe you can just describe what's going on in this.
Yeah, typical kind of signal chain, HDMI, SDI. Pearl Mini is compatible with NDI-HX, SRT, and RTSP streams, so you can bring it into NDI workflows. And you have an HDMI out, and integration with other third-party systems and things like that. So really, your kind of powerhouse, your Swiss Army knife, pop it on the table, connect your sources, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, whatever you want to plug into it, there's going to be a way to get it in there. I'm sure of it. You might need to convert signals if you don't have the right exact connections, but it's one of my favorite parts of the Pearl family is just how they will accept whatever you got.
Yep.
And you won't have scaling issues. You won't have EDID stuff. All of that stuff can be resolved. So
yeah, we have things within the UI that you can play with those things too. If you're running EDI issues, you bring up in your own, or you can apply the default. We got options for you.
Yeah. I'm looking at some questions here. We'll get to those in just a second here. But one of the stories around Pearl Mini, which we'd like to talk about, is NTNU.
Yeah. So NTNU has a really fantastic integration with Panopto and Crestron. And they have it set up so in a way that you can, the students or the faculty are walking inside the room with their scan badge, scanning on a card reader, and it's populating information about them onto a control system. They maybe enter a few details, they press start, and then it all integrates with our REST API, and they're able to start ad hoc events pretty much on the fly with a scan of a badge.
And so that's badge scan. If I'm that faculty member, it means I scan my badge, I push start on our Pearl Mini, and then those files get directed to my folder.
Not even on the Pearl Mini, on their Crestron control. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so the Pearl Mini doesn't even need to be touched in this case, which is really cool.
Yeah, they're really clever up there in northern Norway.
Yes.
Those dark winter days get them. Seem to be. There's a lot of really good AV installations that we see coming out of that part of the world.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's answer a couple of these questions around Pearl Mini here. So we have Arnie mentioning they haven't updated Pearl Mini in a firmware in a couple of years. Anything to be aware of? Like, can Arnie just let it rip and upload the firmware?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. When you're updating firmware on a Pearl device, if you haven't updated in a very long time and you're using configuration you built like years ago, there's a chance that maybe something that we might have changed might not work so well with the old configuration, but that's pretty rare. Yeah. And pretty easy to work around.
But don't do it during a live broadcast.
No, don't do it during a live broadcast.
Do it on a weekend.
But lots of features there. I would definitely recommend updating.
And you're also mentioning, Arnie, Pearl Mini's always been 3-channel. When we first put it out, we were more conservative about how we talked about it. We just weren't sure how well it would perform under 3 channels. It could do it then, but we talked about it under the guise of 2 channels, just because we had more confidence. Now we're quite confident in the 3-channel workflow. So knock yourself out with that. A couple of other questions here. Let me see. Alexander, we have a Pearl Mini from 2019 used to work just locally with presets. Then we did firmware updates, and it came to have recordings that had no readable container. So Alexander had this bug after his update that his recordings had no readable container. I don't know what that means, but Alexander, call Ryan, call our support team, and maybe they can help you figure out what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a corrupted container. It'd be a little strange to happen after a firmware update. More likely corrupted containers happen if you are turning a Pearl off abruptly during a recording. But yeah, reach out. We'll see what we can do about that.
There's a comment here from Gregory Love talking about how he's given an A10 Mini Pro, and he was told it was a Pearl Mini Pro, not adequate. So yeah, very different thing. There's a lot of the great things you can do with the Blackmagic devices, but they do not have the same spec as our Pearl system. So. This is great. Lots more questions in the Q&A. In fact, we'll do a couple more, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Pearl 2 and, of course, Pearl Nexus, because I see a lot of people from universities here in this chat, and Pearl Nexus seems to be the product du jour for anybody in higher ed.
Yes.
Okay, use case. I have a different streaming software called Wirecast, which we know, of course, and would love to connect my New York studio with my London studio over SRT. 2-way streams to communicate to each other due to the low latency. Both individual streams would go through Wirecast stream. Is this possible? I see now you have this with the auction house. How are they doing 2-way communicating? So I think that's the nut of this question is it's easy to send video from one place to another and from one place to another and sort out the latency so they work together. But then how do I talk to that person on the other end?
Yeah, typically you would use a back-channel communication of some kind. Some kind of software, whether that be Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, whatever it is, that will be your typical go-to. The reason being they prioritize low latency audio communication. We much more prioritize quality, right?
You would have to sacrifice your quality so great if it was also doing your 2-way communication. So it's just nice to separate it. We've had great luck with that. When we would do all of our own broadcasts that way using SRT, it was we always had that second back channel, and I found it worked quite well.
Back channel is how you do it for sure. Could you do the 2-way? You'll be dealing with delays and things like that because you have to look at your network, right? We can say that an SRT can have a delay of 80 milliseconds off the device, but then you have to think about your delay hopping between networks, routers, all the way back to that destination, and then decoding it, encoding it, putting it back over. There's time in that.
I'm exhausted just thinking about all that.
And so typically, use back-channel communication. You'll probably have a better experience.
Yeah. Good luck, Callum. I'd love to hear more about that. Sounds like a neat use case, too. Okay. We have another question. Is Epiphan Live available on a Pearl Nano?
No, because there's no switcher.
There's no switcher, I'd be interested to know what you're trying to do with that Epiphan Live on there, but I guess it's still a nice dashboard just to see what's going on with your system.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. With the Nano shelf, is there any concern about ventilation since the exhaust from one Nano goes into the other? So you've got 2 Nanos here. I've got them in a rack. They're side by side, right? Are they going to explode?
No, they should not explode.
Okay. Are they going to overheat?
So we actually do thermal testing on these. We stack them stacks of 3 side by side in a 40C chamber. And they stay within respectable temperatures. And the thing about the fan here, it doesn't actually exhaust this way or that way. It exhausts up, so it's going to go at either side. So I would recommend having some space on either side of the Nano to get the air out. But no, we tested it. You should be fine. They might run a little hotter in that rack system, but as far as we can tell, there's not really any concerns. If you install storage, just install storage as a higher heat tolerance, just in case if they're really crammed together.
This is great. There's so many good questions in there, and we will get back to going over all the Pearl overview. So if you got specific questions about specific models, we'll get into that too. And speaking of which, here's one here. On the Nano or Pearl Mini, how much control do you have over video and audio bit rates? Constant bit rate, variable bit rate. And this, I'm going to say this applies to all of our Pearl systems because I know the answer, so maybe Ryan.
They're constant bitrate encoders. Can you change the bitrate? Of course. You can go pretty much as low as you want, although there'd be certain recommendations why you wouldn't go so low on certain resolutions.
I've never tried a 0.01 stream to YouTube. We should try that one day.
Yeah, I don't know what would happen.
Yeah.
But you can go as high as 50 megabit per second, which if you're doing 1080p, you're probably going to have diminishing returns after maybe 12 megabit per second or something like that. But yeah, we do have control over there, but there's no variable bit rate. It's all constant bit rate with some little flux, but not to nothing.
And that also, that's a nod to why you have these multi-channel systems.
Yeah.
So even when you're only maybe sending one stream, you have one goal in mind, you might have a secondary stream that you want to do at a lower bit rate. So we'll do 2 channels. Like today,
we're doing that right now.
Crowdcast only likes 3 megabits per second. That's what they like. If you do more than that, Crowdcast explodes. But so we've become loyal to that after a few hijinks in there early on. But we're doing a second stream as a backup stream at a much higher bit rate to YouTube, which we'll use as an archive for this.
Yep.
Okay. Any recommendations for adding closed captions, OOTB? Live machine translation, live dubbing. Dubbing will need to introduce delay into the stream, right?
Yeah, we don't have right now a direct way of getting like CC metadata or anything like that into our devices. You could bring in a transcription device, like when the live script was a device that we were selling. You could bring it in as a video source with overlays of a transcription, and it's kind of just like an HDMI source that you'd overlay over top. But no other options for CC than that.
We would probably end up doing it downstream. Most of our customers, they would send it to the cloud.
Yep.
The cloud would add that transcription, and they must figure out the delay for the re-encode and then push it out that way.
Yeah, there's services like Falcon, but I think the more and more we get into services leaning more in AI, they're going to have their own things come out. I mean, even YouTube and stuff like that. They have all auto transcribing and things like that.
Yeah, and if you need to add a bit of delay, you can actually do an SRT stream back to yourself, because through SRT you get control over delay. So that's a bit of a life hack that we used to do in the past. Okay, can you speak about systems where local storage is prohibited, HIPAA or other anonymity requirements? Is it possible to automate the process of uploading files to secure cloud storage?
We do have a way of moving files off the storage device, and there is a setting to remove after upload.
So that would be an automatic upload. So you record everything to the hard drive, it records it there, and the minute it's done,
pushes it to cloud. Once it finishes, it removes the file. You could do that. Is it recommended? It's hard to say, because then you're losing that file on the
But if your
device.
requirement is that you can't store it,
yes, then it's a feature that's there.
Yeah, it's still being stored while it's being transferred. It has to live on that device for a few minutes.
Yeah. It won't be removed until the transfer is actually complete.
Yeah, that's from Jim Griffith. I think I know you, Jim. You're Kingston Jim. Okay. We've got a question.
Hereby known from this point forward as Kingston Jim.
Yeah. Or it's another Jim Griffith one. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Do you have additional trainings for those who are just getting into the streaming space? Our org has recently purchased a Pearl. My questions keep bopping around. Sorry. It's because when somebody answers a question, our moderator kicks it off, so I lose it. Yeah. They reached into Pearl Nano and only have a basic understanding of streaming. That's from Lucinda Gonzalez. Where could Lucinda go to get started?
Our YouTube channel, or you can reach out to us if you're having any more if you're having some difficulties at all. We're more than happy to help. We have a pretty good AI on our website and our chatbot that can answer some pretty decent questions. But if it doesn't know, it'll get to us anyways.
Yeah, and the YouTube channel, I'd start there. There's a lot of great video content there already, so check that out, Lucinda.
Yep.
Okay. What about full NDI? Is this only possible with Pearl 2? That's from Alexander.
Correct, Pearl 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Would it be possible to use the Nano with OpenCast and stream at the same time? So OpenCast is CMS, a cloud location where you're going to store all your files. Can I use Nano
integrates
with OpenCast and stream at the same time?
I do believe. I remember when we first did the OpenCast integration, we couldn't stream at the same time. I believe that's resolved.
Stream to OpenCast at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not by the integration, then of course you could. But if it's by the integration, then I do believe we do support recording and streaming simultaneous. I'd have to double check on that, because I don't quite remember off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's from Alexander. So maybe we can follow up with you after.
Yeah, definitely follow up after.
This is from Carol Van. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, Carol. We're using the function to add chapters to our recordings through the admin page. So that would be every whenever you want, you push a little button and it will add a metadata
Yep.
chapter to that recording. Is it possible to make this function available in the API?
It is.
Oh, great.
It is available
Great.
in the API.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll have a lot of API news coming towards the end of this year, too.
Yep.
So for those of you using the API in Epiphan, you're going to find our end-of-year news to be very good.
Very exciting, actually.
How nice would it be to use the chapter markers in the built-in HTML5 player? So when you're watching that stream in our player, to be able to push the Add Chapter button, I agree, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So that's something we'll pass on to our Yusufa, who runs our product.
API is there, though. You can absolutely do it. We could even set it up on the Stream Deck and do it if we wanted to.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Okay. Could you drop 1080p to 720p during a live broadcast? What would happen?
So the encoding pipeline has to restart.
Yeah.
So you would see a stop in the stream, but the way Pearl is designed is that if there are like interruptions, network, whatever that might be, if you press apply in the encoding page, it will restart the streaming automatically.
Yes.
But you will see a drop in the stream
For a couple of seconds.
Yeah, however long it takes for the encoding pipeline to restart, and then for that data to get back to the endpoint.
So the answer is kind of no. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't.
It would
like
be
the look of it.
disruptive.
Yeah,
For sure.
So it's not a variable. We don't have a variable encoding setting where it will automatically adjust towards the network variable.
Yeah.
That would be a nice thing.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we jump back in? We'll do a lot more questions, which is great. But we'll jump back in, Ryan. Maybe we can resume where you were.
The Nexus.
Pearl Nexus. Let's give an overview of Nexus, and if you want me to use the deck, I can pull that up too.
Yeah, let's go to the deck.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the Nexus.
Yes. Gorgeous.
So the Pearl Nexus. So this is basically designed very similar to the Pearl Mini, except this is a 1U rack mount device. This is purpose-built really for education courtrooms where you need to have a device that can ingest up to 2 to 3 sources in isolation or do layout switching on it that's controlled by something external, like a Crestron, Extron, QSys system, and then maybe integrating with your CMS platform. So this is really based off of automation. You're not using anything on a device to actually control it. You are using external controls for that to happen. So, yeah. And the I/O is, if we go to the next slide here, we can see the I/O in the back. Your HDMI inputs, SDI inputs, typical, very, very, very similar to Pearl Mini, but designed for that education use case for sure.
Yeah, this has been a huge product for us this year. It seems like we really hit the mark for especially the higher ed customers.
Yep.
We have a lot of customers who are standardizing on this product. So in the past, we had a lot of Pearl Mini customers, and we still do have a lot of customers who choose Pearl Mini or Pearl 2 for their lecture halls, but Pearl Nexus seems to be just that right mix of what's needed to either go in a lectern or in a side room for those different classrooms. And one of the most recent customers that we've been talking about is UNLV. So that's the Las Vegas University, and they've installed over 200 Pearl Nexus just this fall. They did it all very quickly. They overhauled a lot of classrooms, and now this is their standard for recording and capturing in those classrooms.
Yep.
I do have a couple of pictures here. And, oops, wrong button. I also wanted to mention, we're going to be talking to UNLV at the end of November. We're going to have another webinar, and they're going to join us, and they're going to talk through exactly what they went through while they were rebuilding all these classrooms. And it's not just about Pearl. Like, they really did a lot of interesting things with their AV stack, and they're doing it in unusual spaces beyond the classroom as well, like these golf simulator spaces.
They have kitchens and things like that as well.
Yeah, they've got kitchens and
really
other practical setups where they just need to capture video. So stay tuned for, I think it's like November 23rd, something like that.
Yeah, a little bit later in November for sure.
Where they're going to join us for an hour here and talk through all of that. Yep. And if you want to get a snapshot now, I'd say go to our website. We have a new video that was just posted. It's also on our YouTube channel. It's a 3-minute case study. It's gorgeous. It makes them look really good, and it really tells the story of this higher ed school. So that's Pearl Nexus. That's UNLV. Let's talk about Pearl 2. Yeah. Which is the most powerful.
It's the most powerful. So Pearl 2 is our flagship here. So we have a 6-channel, 6-input device. So we can bring them in via HDMI or SDI, but also SRT, RTSP, NDI-HX, and full NDI. It's all compatible there. NDI alpha channels. You can also do chroma keying if you want as well. So lots of options for you there. We see this a lot when you need to capture more than 3 cameras. especially if you're doing ISO recording. You can capture up to 6 at one time, or put a 4K camera in here, and then you could crop out 1080p sources from that, and then use that in different channels across the board. So really powerful device. Does come in a rack mount variant as well. So we have the desktop because it's just nicer to have on a desk. But you can also have the rack mount version there additionally. So and really one of our main use cases here, or one of our main clients who really has used the Pearl 2 in these interesting ways, is Talon Audiovisual, and they've been using Epiphan Edge for controlling, monitoring their devices. And they've literally been on a plane when monitoring an event via Epiphan Edge, doing it all remotely, and really utilizing not only our Pearl hardware, but then our cloud integrations on top of that, which just simplifies the whole usage of our devices and monitoring.
This is so the owner of Talon is Tim, and he's a great follow on LinkedIn and other socials as well if you're into live events or just seeing how people do stuff. And he's kind of a bootstrap guy. He's figured out how to do a lot of things that other big companies, I think, are too scared to do. And even when he's on an airplane, he's still figuring out how to make that time valuable and work for him. So he's really embraced the remote side, remote capabilities of our Pearl system. So. We've learned a lot from seeing the work that he does.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, bit of a cold. Okay, I see more questions coming in, so why don't we jump back in there and do a little more? Okay.
Yep.
What have we got? Is it possible to do a preset switching on Nano with Extron touch panels? That's again from Alexander.
You could definitely apply presets on a Nano for sure. Now it's not layout switching though. Should mention that.
Preset switching.
Yeah,
changing the presets.
Yeah, changing the presets. So if you had a use case where it's like this picture for this, but then you had the use case that was full frame camera or something else, you could definitely. We do have APIs to apply presets. You just need to know what the presets are named, and then you can apply them. So it wouldn't be a problem at all. But it does stop encoding pipeline, so it is not a layout switch. It is a change of settings. It's a preset.
Yeah. Is it possible to control from a different VLAN than the video goes to?
Well, that's coming up in a moment.
This is again from Alexander. Alexander, it's like you knew what we wanted to talk about and you just fed in all the questions because
thank you for the segue.
You keep being 2 slides ahead of us, which we might as well go to now. We were thinking someone was going to mention that at some point. So we have a slide in here. Here we go.
Oh yes. So
dual network.
It's coming.
This is coming very soon. We've already announced that it's coming, and I think it'll actually be released before the end of the month.
Or at most, I think mid-October would be the latest. I would say.
So not this afternoon.
Well, not this afternoon. No, I wouldn't say so.
Late October. That's before the end of the month. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's right. It is October, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's okay. I have no idea where
it's a Halloween gift for everyone. Dual network. Anyway, why would people like Alexander? He's talking about a VLAN setup. Can you maybe explain why dual network is interesting for people?
So dual network is interesting because you can be streaming on one interface when maybe that is a network that can be connected to certain other devices, and then you can be controlling it from another interface, like the built-in. So you might have like an AV control with your Crestron or Nextron systems, maybe your NDI cameras, wherever that might be. And then you need to also have Pearl connected to a internet connected network. And that internet connected network is not allowed to speak to that AV network. And so now, coming up, you'll be able to put a USB dongle on the back, and you'll be able to use dual networks. Now.
So you have all your secure stuff on one network, and then the stuff that's going to the internet, which is inherently insecure, can go over the other network.
Yeah, and we made sure that you cannot route any data in between those at all, so there's no sharing of data between those ports.
Great. I have another picture here.
Yep. And we will release a documentation about what USB devices we tested, but I believe most any Realtek type USB devices should work.
Okay. The CPU load for most of our Pearl 90s floats around 50 to 60% even when idle. Is the behavior similar for the Pearl Nexus? This comes from Amina Kirby.
Yeah, that would be the same.
And you're comfortable with that number?
Yeah, 50, 60 is probably fine. Typically, if you're seeing that 50 to 60 CPU load on a Pearl device, especially Pearl Mini, Pearl Nexus, it's because each one of those channels will take up 8 to 10% of CPU load. So if you have channels that are sitting idle, it doesn't mean they're not doing anything. They are encoding, even if it's the no signal image. So if you're seeing that, it might mean you could possibly reduce your channel load a little bit, and that might help. or maybe you're ingesting some NDI sources, things like that, because that will use more CPU than like your HDMI or SDI type connections. But you can always reach out and we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
I think it was Kirby, was his name?
No.
Oh.
I think that might have been the person's last name.
Anyway,
Anyway,
just reach out.
I've just read through 37 other chats here, so the name was whoosh. But I see lots of great chat coming from everybody else, not just to us, but to other people answering questions here. And like Dan is suggesting Unity for back channel comms, which is, I think, a pretty widely known solution that we talk about. And we have Yusufa here jumping in with comments. So I see someone recommending a Magewell. How dare you? But lots of other like really great stuff in here. But I see another question. Is the storage on a Pearl family SSD? That's from Gregory.
Yeah, Pearl 2 is an integrated SSD. You can install an SSD on the Pearl Mini. For Pearl Minis are bought since June 1st, 2024. We do support that. And then also for Pearl Nano, the Nexus comes with a 1 terabyte SSD already installed, so you don't need to be installing or taking that out at all.
Yeah. We do have a couple of polls running in Crowdcast. So if you get a chance, look in your sidebar, you'll see this little thing that looks like a graph. And if you click on it, there's a couple of polls. So the first one is asking how many Pearl devices you own. Leading question, but I like it. And then the second one is we're trying to understand what sector you're from. So I see a lot of people from the live event industry here, lots of people from education. But get those votes in because it's interesting to see kind of who we are as a group here as we chat.
Yep.
Okay, so we did the Pearl 2.
Yeah, we
did all our stuff. Okay.
We've covered the Pearl devices.
There's a couple of general principles around our Pearls that we thought we could make light of, because some things that people don't know very much about are things like configuration presets, automatic file upload, the whole Epiphan Edge side of things for those people who are doing remote work. So why don't we talk about some of those? And I do have a couple of slides here to show that. So, oops, I keep... Okay. So automations is kind of the general category.
Yeah.
Epiphan Edge. Can you tell the wonderful people what Epiphan Edge is?
Yeah. So Epiphan Edge is a fleet management system that lives under our cloud umbrella. There's a couple products within that, but Epiphan Edge is where you can pair your Pearl devices to. You can monitor them. You can control them. You can get email alerts. You can remotely log into the device. You can get into the switcher remotely. Pretty much gives you complete control, just like as if you were local to it, but you can be in Australia and be controlling a device in our office here in Ottawa. So it just really opens up the doors for ease of use. And we have larger clients like our MTSU and our other education clients in the States, and they have 350 or so devices of ours, and they're managing all of those. And they've been telling us that like it saves them a lot of time, a lot of admin, type of labor, because they can just, if they get an alert, they can get an email for it, they can see which device is doing what, they can log into it all remotely, and they can just, rather than walking room to room, they have a way of interacting with it via the cloud in a remote way.
Yeah.
So,
in a ways, it's a nicer way to interact with your Pearl system.
Yes.
And then it's a more modern UI, and it's really simplified. I use it every day for different things because I'm trying to understand some concept around Pearl. I'm in it, but even for our local studio here, I'll be in our office, which is just on the other side of this wall, and I'm using it just to come in and control our local devices here. Absolutely. So it's quite convenient.
Yep.
We have another question here from Clifford about the dual network support. We were talking about it, and he's asking if it will be on the Mini, not just the Nexus. Yeah, it'll be on the Mini as well.
So Mini, Nexus, Pearl 2, Pearl Nano will not support it right now.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so, and these are just more features of Edge. So scheduling. So one of the big asks we've had over quite a while is, I want to automate my Pearl device without a CMS, essentially. And so what we did, we built in a scheduling system within Epiphan Edge. What it allows you to do is you can schedule recording and streaming, whenever you'd like. We give you a nice calendar view, and it allows you to automate your Pearl devices. We download the schedule on Pearl, so if you lose network connection or something like that when your event comes up, the Pearl's still going to start. It doesn't require a connection to Edge for it to start the schedule that is already downloaded, which is really, really important, I would say.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of follow-up questions in general to Edge, and you touched upon one of them already. Can you describe the different? There's a free version of Edge and there's paid version of Edge.
Yep.
Scheduling is part of that paid version, but what can I do with the free version?
So free version is going to give you monitoring, streaming, recording, control, and just being able to look at your devices. When you want that remote access, those email alerts, that scheduling, that's when you're going to be getting it.
But I can still get an image of my. I
yeah.
can watch a low-res stream of what's happening in that room. I can see the inputs.
You get snapshots. You get
snapshots.
Yes, exactly.
I can see my channels, and I can start and stop recording. I just can't get in and configure it to a great deal.
Unlimited device pairing. We in the actual Edge UI, we give you the IP address. So if you are on the same network, you can just copy the IP address of that device, pop in your web browser, and you can get inside of it. So there's some nice little features inside there, even for if you're on the same network. It's still a great tool in that way.
Yeah, so
as well.
Arnie's asking, he's just a single user and he wants to use it. Yeah, you should get in there and try it, Arnie. Just pair your Pearl. It's a really simple pairing mechanism.
Yeah.
And then you can have cloud access to your Pearl, and if you decide you need that, when you need that more advanced access because you want to dive into it, you can pay for a monthly subscription and control it.
Yeah.
We have another question around it from Callum talking about does Edge work as a source monitor? So I can manage multiple people in different regions. Example, one in New York, London, South Africa. If you remember, Callum was the one asking about these remote studios in different places.
Yep.
That's exactly a perfect use case for it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you could. So if you have the premium version, you can actually pull full frame, full frame rate off the devices as well. So if you wanted to monitor, say, 3 devices, you could just open up 3 devices and then look at their live, essentially look at what's happening in that video frame for that device.
And if you don't like what they're sending on their end, like if you're doing an SRT-based workflow, because it sounds like you might be doing that kind of thing, Callum, you can go into that device and control it and change all those settings.
Yep.
So it can be sitting on a desk with nobody nearby, and you could still completely configure it. So it's pretty great for that use case.
That's kind of a little segue into what I've talked to people about is also we do have integrators and AV companies that offer Edge as a service. So you can pay a yearly amount, which is a reduced rate, right? And then they could offer it as a service to their clients as well. They can be part of those teams. And then they can help them out in that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have another question from Carl talking about, has the schedule without network been fixed? That's a gentle dig at the fact that you do, for scheduling to work well, you want to have network access to it. However,
when you so it will download the schedule,
yes.
and then it should start. Yeah, for sure. But you won't be able to start on RTMP.
But Carl's saying, I reported a couple of weeks ago that if you lose the network, it runs the schedule but did not record.
Yes, we did fix that.
We did fix that.
Yeah.
So how would Carl get that? Does he have to?
I believe it'll be in a firmware coming up for sure. Yeah.
Oh, so it's been fixed but has been pushed?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, and that would be pushed on the Edge side of things, right?
Yes, I do believe so. Yeah. As far as I know, it was fixed. So either it's going to be an Edge fix or it's firmware fix, one of the two.
Okay.
So I'll reach out to Carl. About that.
And it's coming up very soon, that firmware update, like a week or something like that. So I know we're just writing up the release notes for that, and hopefully that will be noted in there.
Yep.
Okay. Clifford mentioned, I found out that when you create RTMP on Edge, you do not see it in the API. I'm not sure I understand that question. You do not see in the API of that unit. What's the purpose behind this?
Oh, so it might be talking about when you create an RTMP on Edge, it loads it into the web UI a little differently. Mm-hmm. It just comes up as being RTMP. It doesn't show you the stream URL or the stream key or anything.
Oh, it's like a one long
it's literally just like it's just a little different look. That might be what it is. I would recommend just reaching out so we can understand exactly what you mean there.
Okay. Okay, this part, I've got a comment from Rand here. Will there be a replay of this that I can forward? Implementing Pearls with Epiphan Connect and Unify seems to be a highly effective and robust alternative compared to WebEx webinars. Sorry, I'm not really reading this very well. Thanks for the comment, Rand. I'm glad you're finding this valuable. Well, this will be recorded, and I'd love to hear more about how you're using Epiphan Connect and Unify, which is something we haven't talked about very much today, but we do have a lot of customers who are doing complete remote workflows, and they're extracting Zoom participants into Pearl or Zoom participants into an entirely cloud-based workflow with Unify. So great to see that you see the value in that, Rand. Okay. Did we cover everything in our deck?
Just a couple more slides there.
Just a couple more slides there.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull up our deck here. That just kind of keeps us on track. So we talked about scheduling.
Yep.
You can actually see this beautiful UI there if you go into the edge. It's quite nice and elegant. Configuration presets.
Yeah, so configuration presets, it's basically like applying a slate of settings to a Perl device. Like if you're like loading a loaded game or saved game on a computer or something like that.
Yeah.
You can load up settings on a Perl device and then recall them. The great thing is here is say if you're deploying a fleet of like 40 devices or more, you can build out one, say, Perl Mini, and if you were deploying 39 other Perl Minis, you could take that one preset, apply it to all Perl Minis via the cloud, and if you're using premium, you can do it in a batch action. Select your devices, apply that preset to 40 or whatever different devices across your entire fleet, and then you don't need to go room to room to room. It just speeds everything up immensely.
Yeah, this is the feature I find that when we have customers who tell us they love Perl, it's usually because they figured out this feature, because it lets them scale beyond their one thing that they're trying to do and go like set it up for somebody else and do that thing. It is kind of a sneaky superpower of these systems that I know our power users like.
Well, we just actually the other day at one of our trade shows we're at, the Perl Mini that was brought didn't have a certain configuration on it, so I just logged into it via Edge to the ETC, whatever it was, and just applied a preset, and then now that device is all configured for them. The person on site didn't have to do anything. They just had to tell me it was on Edge. And then I did it. I just figured it out for them and did it in a couple minutes.
Makes your job very easy.
Yes, it does.
Not designed for that, but pretty nice perk.
Yes, it is.
Okay, if you have any more questions, put them in here. We'd love to chat. We are getting closer to the top of the hour, so we'll probably, once this chat winds down, we'll wind down and we'll call it a day. Yep. We've done all of our presentation for today, but we're happy to sit here and talk shop with you and answer any of your specific questions about any of these devices or...
Yep, for sure. There's really just one last slide there, just talking about how you compare. We don't even really need to go to the slide. So the last thing is that you can use USB. USB can be used to load configuration presets on a device, but you could also download a pairing code from Epiphan Edge and actually put that from device to device to device and pair up any of our Perl devices with a USB stick rather than going into Edge and going into the UI or anything like that and copying the pairing code or pressing a button. The USB can just essentially upload it, do all the pairing for you automatically.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We can also give people a little bit of advice if they've heard us talk about all these different Perls and they want to now run out and buy one, Ryan.
Yes, literally run.
How would you advise someone to choose which Perl for which application?
Yeah, so how I usually mention is if 1 to 2 sources, no switching, Perl Nano. If you're doing switching or anything upstream, that'd be one source. Perl Nano is a great thing. 4K HEVC encoding. Go with the Perl Nano for those smaller use cases or streamer recorder add-on for one source. When you want to record any more from 2 to 3, Perl Mini, Perl Nexus, Perl Mini for your shared environments here where you're going to have this on a podium or something like that, where there's people using it, the actual device touchscreen. And then Perl Nexus when it's going to be in a rack and it's going to be controlled by external things. And then anything more than 3 sources, Perl 2, or if you need more advanced technologies like chroma keying, or you need up to 6 channels with NDI and things like that, the NDI, full NDI I should mention, then Perl 2 is going to be your one to go to. So 1, Perl Nano, 2 to 3, Perl Mini, Perl Nexus, more than 3, Perl 2.
Very nice. Clearly you've done that more than once.
Twice or 3 times, yeah.
I do see a question coming in here from Vinny, and it's a bit of a longer question, but Vinny is doing a podcast, and Vinny is doing Zoom. He's trying to figure out how to separate audio coming in from Zoom through SRT. I'll read it here. When doing a podcast with Perl 2 and Uno overlays, I use camera 1 for me, but I bring the guest in via SRT. His audio levels are different than my levels. Any way I can separate those 2 levels so in post it can be leveled to be equal?
So you would want to do the work either upstream, or you could actually, if you need to increase some gain, it all depends on what is different. Is the Zoom louder, or is he saying like, the Zoom's louder?
His SRT, they're different.
Yeah. So if the Zoom audio is louder, there is some gain staging on all Perl devices to bring your audio up a bit. If it is XLR or analog audio like RCA, things like that. Otherwise, you would need to get those things leveled up upstream. If you wanted to have those separate in a post-production environment, you'd have to have another channel running.
You could record each one individually as ISOs, and then of course you'd have
Exactly.
separated audio. That would be how you do it.
Yep.
And that's honestly the best solution, because then you get total control in post, and everybody in post will be happy.
Yep.
But you can apply some gain if you're using XLR inputs for yours, and maybe that solves it as well.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, a couple of more questions here. Are there any Epiphan products in WIP? We did that one. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, Callum's saying, so rather than teaching my teams on other locations on how to set up the device, I could just use Edge to install a preset remotely? Yes, Callum.
Yep.
All they have to do is get it on the network. And, it has to be paired as well, which they could help you.
They
do.
could
It's
give
like
you
read a code on the screen.
Pair and go right from the screen.
Yeah.
If that would be all you need, for sure.
Do the Pearls work with WebEx?
Not directly integration. I don't recall if WebEx has a streamed input. If it did, it'd have to be compatible with SRT or RTMP or HLS or something like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But I've seen folks use HDMI out to a capture card, bring it into WebEx. They can definitely do that.
Yeah.
So
Let's look at that poll data, because I'm curious. Which sector are you a part of? 50% of you for education, 40% from live events, and then a bunch of other people from different places. So nice to see that spread. And 66% of you own Pearl devices, and then a bunch of others who are thinking about it and running out to the store right now. And then we ask people which Pearl they like to use. I should be showing these. You can see the same data if you click on that little graph in the sidebar, but it's a pretty even split between Pearl 2, Pearl Mini, and Pearl Nexus owners. Oh, some more votes coming in now. So nice cross-section of people here. It's great to see. Okay, is there one more question here? This is from DeAndre Level, and I'll remind everybody else, get your questions in, because Ryan and I are going to fall over shortly. Is there any way to get the 4K upgrade if your Pearl is not on the network?
So typically, you do need to be on the network. We have a way of doing it if you don't have network.
So call Ryan.
Contact us. We have an API command that you could use. But we do need some specific information about your Pearl device, and also you need a 4K add-on purchase, of course.
Yeah. DeAndre has the Pearl 2 and the Pearl Nano. So
yep. Yeah. Just reach out to support@epiphan.com. We'll get you sorted.
Great. This is so cool. It's interesting. There's so many different use cases. I swear, no customer is the same.
No.
And that's true for most industries. But in our industry, man, they're coming from all over the place, from different churches and schools and everywhere. It's fascinating to hear what everybody's piecing together.
You make something for what you think something will be, and then people blow your minds with how the other ways they use it.
The creativity around these things is fascinating. So it's nice to see that. I'm just keeping an eye on our last questions here, but thank you guys for your help. That's from Callum.
Cool.
So thanks, Callum, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for watching. All these questions from Clifford and others. So that really makes our job a lot easier when we get these questions. But I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
I think so.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. We 7 minutes ahead of schedule.
Yes.
Most excellent.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that release coming out in hours. No, just kidding. Days, weeks. It's really
the soup is literally going to kill you.
I know. In reality, I think it is in about a week, and it's going to help a lot of people who want to separate their network traffic. And there's usually a few other Easter egg goodies of things that we fix when we put these releases out. So that'll be coming up soon, and we'll be back here, like I said earlier, in about a month.
Yep.
And we'll be talking about UNLV's installs and talking a lot of higher ed stuff and the philosophy around how to approach AV in the higher ed space with people much smarter than you and I here today. So that should be a good one. And you can sign up for it on our website, and you'll see emails, and we'll be all over it. I do see a few last questions. Yep. Thanks, everybody. Just thank yous. So thank you so much for watching. It's been great to have you here, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you.